Hi, y'all. Um, First of all, let me correct a mistake I may have made, but I'm not sure if I made it, but I'm going to correct it anyway. So, welcome to the world of confusion. Um, I don't sync these lectures particularly with the chapters that you happen to be in at the moment. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Primarily, I want you to get more out of a week's work than just what you're doing in the chapter. At some point, you will see, you will be reading about most all the information that you're receiving in these lectures. Why am I telling you that? For this reason. Take notes. When you watch these lectures, take notes because at some point, as I say, you most likely will be working, reading in a chapter where the information came from a lecture that you've already heard. Or it could be one that you haven't heard yet. And so when you finally get to that lecture, then you would need to take notes. So the bottom line is take some notes in each lecture. Don't break your brain. I won't ask you many questions from the lectures. I may throw one or two out there occasionally, but you need to know the information because come time for you to answer for the course, you're going to need to know the material. Oh, that makes sense. If you're confused about it, send me an email. So away we go. Let's continue with our discussion. We talked about nature, nurture, etc. Last time we were together, uh, and we also talked about physical development and so on and so forth, and the relationship between cognitive and mental development. Now, here's some new stuff. Um, each lecture will be new stuff. Periods of the lifespan. Sounds simple. It's not. Um, First of all, you have to understand these ideas. The idea that could be development is not a natural thing in some cases. So here's one of the viewpoints, and that's basically um, this is basically a discussion of nurture. So we've covered nature, nurture, nature being unlearned stuff that you're instinctively capable of in most cases, and nurture being things that are taught to you. So this view of the periods of the lifespan are all about nurture. And let's begin with the first one. Good place to start. Social construction. You're going to hear that a lot in psychology. You're going to hear it a lot in personality, studies of personality, right here in studies of development. Anything where there's a potential for nurture to play a role, but particularly in this case, a major role. So, social construction. Uh, Development appears to be natural, but really are the result of cultural and societal influences? That would be a good question on a quiz, by the way. So, social construction, they appear to be natural. These developmental processes, by the way, is what we're talking about. Developmental processes appear to be natural, but they're really a result of cultural and societal influences. So let's look at that for a moment. Childhood, we're identifying particular parts of the lifespan. Childhood, adolescence, adulthood are determined by the culture of the society. If we don't discuss it today, we will at some point. Things called rites of passage. I'll talk to you about that at a later time, maybe today if I can get to it. So here's an example of what we're talking about. Uh, Culture slash society driven developmental aspects. And here we are. Until the 1920s in America, there was no such thing as adolescence. It was not considered a developmental determinant. What was it like? Well, are you telling me, Dr. Dasher, that you were a baby and then you were grown? Of course not. What I'm telling you is the term we use for adolescence, what's that period kind of generally? 13 to 19, maybe loosely. Okay, well, so what? before the 20s, that didn't matter. You were either a kid, a child, air quotes, until you left school and got a job. So you were a child until you graduated from whatever grade happened to be the last grade in the school you attended, and you got a job. So you went from child to adult, bam, overnight. You may have been in a 12-year school system. Very rarely did that happen out in the boondocks. Farm kids didn't go to school for 12 years. As soon as they got capable of doing farm chores at an adult level, let's say 12 or 13, that's the end of school for them. They were primarily raised to be farmers. And that was a societal thing. It was a cultural thing. It was a need. We got to have farmers. We don't need a bunch of smart people, schooled people running around the farm. May have helped in some cases, but they needed manual labor. Somebody had to milk the cows and do the plowing, etc. So this is a nurture view of periods of the lifespan. Now, today, it's totally different. We have these identifications brought about to you by developmental psychologists, but don't forget that we're dealing with society and we're dealing with culture. Some of these things I'm about to tell you about are definitely nature. There's nothing you can do about it. But after a while, it sort of reverts to nurture, and I'll kind of point that out to you as we go through. This is a somewhat long list, not bad. There are about 8 items on here. So where do we begin? At the beginning, infancy. That's a nature-determined thing. We all were babies at some point in time. So the period of infancy, nature, birth, etc. Can't do a whole lot when you're an infant. Later on, we'll be talking about a theorist, Erik Erikson, and a couple of others who say, boy, that's a rough time in a human being's life because they're totally dependent on other people. And I won't get into those theories now. I will when we get to them, obviously. But suffice it to say that infancy has its own little period that's determined by nature. The next one is also nature, but it has a piece or two of nurture in it. Toddlerhood. What's happening here in toddlerhood? Well, you're becoming more independent. You're learning more stuff. You're getting better at motor things, muscle things. And there's a major event that takes place here. Again, kind of a mixture, nature, nurture. Toddlerhood. Toddlerhood, what are they doing? Where does that word come from? Toddling around. They're learning how to walk. They start out crawling. Crawling is instinctual. Although I've heard funny stories about how children are mobile. They don't all get on their little hands and knees and crawl around. Some of them scoot around on their belly. I had a sister who laid on her back and pushed with her feet. Kind of weird, like she was doing a backstroke in a pool. She never crawled on her hands and knees. My oldest son crawled on his feet and hands. So what they modeled, what did they model? They modeled what they thought they saw. I don't know how you get on your bike and push with your feet, but my sister's weird anyway. So toddlerhood, a lot of things going on here. Nature mingled in, or let me say nurture mingled in with nature. Observation in toddlerhood, learning how to do things like walk. And then I'll go through the rest of these pretty quickly. Early childhood, again, mixture, nature, nurture here. You are learning some more motor things, but you're now getting cognitive. I'm getting more in the realm of this up here. Thinking, where does a lot of the information come from? Comes from others. Middle childhood, another milestone. Middle school. I taught middle school way back in the day. Wasn't called middle school then. It's called junior high school. And it's tough because kids at those ages don't know whether they're kids or adults. Physically, they're becoming adults, Mentally, they're still a kid. It's tough on young people. Adolescence. All of you are just recently removed from adolescence. Some of you are still adolescents. So you know what you've gone through. This is kind of a training ground for adulthood. We're trying to become adults in our ways of thinking, hopefully maturity. You know some, and I know some that didn't quite get their maturity yet developed. That's all in the prefrontal cortex, decision making. We'll talk about that if you take my neuroscience course. So adolescence, a tough time. I'm trying to figure out who I am. Do I develop an identity? So there's a lot of cognitive junk going on here. Young adulthood. Don't have to tell you much about that because that's most where all you are. Young adulthood. You're still learning. Obviously, you're in college, you're learning academic things, but you're also learning about life and independence, so on and so forth. Middle adulthood. Big transition period, beginning to recognize things like I'm not getting any younger. I can't do the things that I could do 10 years ago. Physically, I'm not capable of it. So it's an awakening period. I think more so, in my opinion, than the others. Adolescence, I think, is an awakening period, and I think middle adulthood is. Adolescence, hey, I'm almost a full-fledged adult here, at least in the eyes of many, including my own. So middle adulthood, whoa, I'm starting to get a little older here. And then late adulthood, I'm old. You know, it's a reckoning. There's no more of this athletic kind of existence for most of us. So 8 periods. Where do these 8 periods come from? Western industrial societies. These are identified in Western industrial societies. So they're telling you in the West that you're going to go through this stuff, and then there are expectations related to all of that. Okay, one quick thing, and then we'll be done for the day. I want to give you a list of age ranges, and these are important, so you might definitely want to write these down. Infancy to toddlerhood, birth to age 3. And again, these are Western ideas. Early childhood, 3 to 6. Middle childhood, 6 to 11. Adolescence, 11 to about 20. Some of the age ranges have changed. Young adulthood, check this one out, 20 to 40. These are new age ranges. Middle adulthood, 40 to 65. And late adulthood, 65 to death. Now, why is that important? Because you stereotype people. Late adulthood, there are other age ranges given by non-professionals, and I say that kind of loosely. There is some involvement with psychology and medical doctors as to changing these age ranges. I'll give you an example. One of the groups reclassified adolescents from 10 to 29. So you're an adolescent in development, not necessarily in maturity, and so on and so forth. Young adulthood, they're going 30 to 55, and so on and so forth. Late adulthood, 70 to death. I'm not too sure that many of you would agree with all of that, but it's out there nonetheless. So that's the end of it for this day. I'll be back with you starting into another unit closely related to this, and look for that lecture. May come, it'll probably be the second week, because this will be all within the first week. All right, see ya.